what I want to talk about, inshallah, tonight as we're here, to go back and look into the concept of Islamic universities and Islamic schools and how they were formed and how they formed the age and the people who lived in that time, meaning the Muslim community. What we have seen, mashallah, here before me, the product of Noor-Ul-Iman Islamic School. Because every institution, at the end of the day, it has to produce something to be recognized as an option, as a standard that we're going to be setting ourselves with. And you are here to support that institution. But we have to go back and look into the history of Islam as to what Islam and Muslims produce and these institutions that we're looking into. And I just want to give examples of two institutions in the Muslim history. I won't take your time that long. I know after dinner you have sweets to worry about, and after sweets you have silent auction to worry about, and then after that you have many more things to worry about driving back home, inshallah. But what I want to touch upon, inshallah, is how Muslim institutions in the past have been able to form a community of Muslims and transform them to another higher level. And those two institutions I want to talk about tonight, inshallah, is the first institution that is called the Nizamiyya College. That was built by Nizam-ul-Mulk in 1065, in 11th century. And the other college that I want to talk about is the Aligarh Muslim University, that was made and put in together by Shaykh Sa'di Khan in India, right after the demise of the Mughal Empire. The Muslims who supported the concept of the Islamic leadership in South Asia. Millions of Muslims, they don't know where to go. And Shaykh Sa'di Khan was able to put an institution that guided not just a few hundreds of students, but the entire nation in South Asia. So we want to look into what type of institution are we producing, and in return, what type of students these institutions are going to produce, so that Islam in America is going to have a lasting impact. It's not about power, but it's about empowering people. So we want to look into the Nizamiyya school. That first, Nizam-ul-Mulk had this idea of putting together a model institution for its Islamic scholars and students of knowledge who are looking into, at the time when you have astronomy, when you have the Greek writings coming into Muslim culture, when you have Roman civilization and all the historical artifacts that have been produced, and the Muslim nation is struggling to go forward. All these aqidah issues, all these issues in regards to logic and reason and revelation are coming into question. And here's a Muslim, right, who's actually thinking about the future. He foresaw what needs to be done in order to guide the generations of Muslim students and the Muslim community. So he puts a school together in Persia or in Iran, again called Nizamiyya. And this institution produced people the likes of which has not been produced by any other university in Islamic history. Only to be toppled by, inshallah, Noor-Ul-Iman Academy, Noor-Ul-Iman School. The type of people, if just one luminary of this institution is mentioned, that is enough. And his name is Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali rahmatullah alayh. And he is an individual who produced a work, just a single work, his magnum opus, Ihya Ulumuddin, is sufficient for Muslims of generations after that. Every scholar who had written books about Islamic teaching, about Islam, fiqh, marriage, the spiritual aspect of Islam, they've all been tied together in this one book. And they have modeled and copied this book till the 14th century, till today. This is the type of impact this individual had, who was called Hujjatul Islam. That he is a living proof of the authenticity of this deen, of the authenticity of this religion, that it is haqq, it is truth from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the type of individuals that this Islamic school has produced. Now when we look into his work, and we're not talking about Al-Ghazali as someone who only impacted or who only informed people in the East who were living in madrasa society. Rather, he was somebody who actually not only impacted the Eastern culture and the Muslims, but also the Western culture. The introduction of knowledge, the introduction of proof of God and His existence in Western scholasticism. That time and age when Thomas Aquinas is going through all this, he is borrowing Western and Greek logic, not from the Greeks, because these writings have been perished in that language, but he's borrowing it from the Arabic writing that have been produced and have been secured by the Muslims. And Imam Ghazali is at the forefront of Islamic knowledge. He's not simply talking about the religiosity, how to get married and how to give a khutbah at the masjid and the minbar, but he's also talking about the philosophy of his time. This is an individual who's far beyond what we could recognize as an individual who's a scholar in religious knowledge, but he was a scholar in secular knowledge as well, along with all of his qualifications. So this is what we see in Imam Al-Ghazali, a product of Nizamiyya, where he taught as a dean and a professor. Also, to go along with Hujjat al-Islam, Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi, Bahauddin al-Zuhair. Al-Zuhair is an individual that was produced by the same Islamic school. And he is an individual who's recognized. Now today we have the art pieces, the Islamic calligraphy, Islamic art, the khat, that we have been introduced by all these great master calligraphers. Bahauddin al-Zuhair was the best amongst the people at his time. He was known to be the master of all these khat or khutut that were written in Arabic calligraphy, that had been written and handed the Quran writing for times that we have known. And he was an individual who went not just a calligraphy master, but he was a master in Arabic poetry. And so these are the types of individuals. They're not simply scholars in Islam, but they're scholars in different liberal arts, that they recognize humanities and all the legal aspects that relate to their lives. Now another scholar that I want to mention, and know it for sure, even our president, Barack Obama, he quoted from the Shaykh of his time. He was called Shaykh Sa'di Shirazi, rahmatullah alayh. He is someone, when we were young, the Indian subcontinent and the Persian area, the students were first given lectures in Gulistan of Shaykh Sa'di. They were actually taught from the books of Shaykh Sa'di, who lived to be in his 90s, late 90s. He was a scholar who went from one place to another. He was a scholar who wanted to be with the dervishes, who wanted to be with the local people. He wanted to be with merchants. He wanted to sit at the tea houses and discuss issues of fiqh and discuss issues that come in between Allah and His servants, and to recognize that what they are going through. He was interested in their problems, so he could give them advice. So he went to people instead of people flocking to him. A different approach that he took. But this is the reason why we see that these are the people who produced work of the Nizamiyya school. And the President Obama, when he was given a talk about Nowruz, the Iranian New Year celebration, he talked about his quotation that he mentioned, referring to what Shaykh Sa'di mentioned: the children of Adam are limbs to each other, having been created of one essence. The children of Adam are limbs to each other, having been created of one essence. And this was his message, quoting from Shaykh Sa'di, who is a product of Islamic school, Nizamiyya, and he changed many lives. I remember going to Karachi in a school that was called Gulistan, the Rose Garden. And it was called Gulistan because of that name, what Sa'di Shirazi gave 1100 years AD. Back in times when people didn't even recognize who Sa'di was now today, if you ask them. These were luminaries who produced not just individuals who took care of themselves, but students of knowledge all over the Islamic world. Another one I want to talk about very briefly, Tajuddin al-Shahrastani. This is a man who, before anything and anybody, documented the history of religions, and in a systematic